Guys are still having problems with
Yeah.
sound like I am. Please confirm if you can hear me so that we proceed. All right, that's
Okay,
fine,
she's
Victoria.
fine.
It's good to
Yeah.
know you can hear me now.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So you can go ahead.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you. Guys, my name is Emmanuel Yegon. I'm the co-founder and communications director at Mobile Journalism Africa. And I am really sorry for this technical hitch. We should actually have begun. And probably, if these were happening indoors, there could be, it could be better. So I am outside in the field. I'm in West Pokot right now, looking for a story. So I'm following some story here about female genital mutilation, and it has been rampant, especially during this COVID-19 period. And it's good because today we are talking about storytelling. So I'm just going to like give this perspective from my end, and if you have any questions, feel free to just put it there on the chat, because now I can't hear Cynthia. So what will happen is, if you have any question, just put it up down there, just type in. I'll try to respond to that as much as possible. So I'll try and see what we can be able to do in the shortest time possible, because we could be leaving this place now to go to Mashinani, somewhere else. And I am riding in a vehicle that has a lot of, like, it has a public address on top. So I think there will be a lot of disturbance there. And I think we might be leaving any time now. But yes, guys, so storytelling, how you do it, the tools you use do not matter. But the how, like, I'll start it this way. A very good mentor, a very good friend of mine, a journalist. You guys know John Alanamo. He told us that the closer you get to the people, the closer you get to the story. Now, I'll use this analogy that most of us, I don't know if all of us are in the space of communication or journalism, but I would say this, that even if you are working for an organization or you run your own organization, that storytelling is at the center of growth for your organization. So for those of us who are in the field, and really all of us who are interested in this thing we call storytelling. So what I would want us to look at is how to do storytelling. Now, what we do at Mobile Journalism Africa is we use the smartphone. Like, we use the smartphone to tell stories, and all these stories are then published on digital platforms, so YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. And we believe that the smartphone is the future of storytelling. Why? Because it's easy to use, it's fast, it's convenient, and it should be fun doing stories using your smartphone, because it's something that you can access, it's something that's with you each and every time. And if you've seen most of the things, including even what's happening around the world at the moment, the Black Lives Matter campaign, most of the stories, even the video that we received of the police officers assaulting George Floyd, for instance, that was captured on the smartphone. So it tells you that today the smartphone is a very crucial, a very important tool, not only for daily use, but most importantly for storytellers. That you cannot make an excuse today of saying, you have this idea, and it also applies to filmmakers, that you have this idea and you cannot execute because you do not have equipment, yet in your pocket you have a smartphone. And so for us, the smartphone is what we call a pocket studio, that it's a mobile studio, like you're working with it everywhere, that you can shoot, edit, publish straight from your phone. So we've done a number of stories, and especially around this COVID-19 period, we've been doing stories on innovations and stories of acts of kindness from different parts of the country, and also receiving contributions from different parts of the continent on how people are doing, how they are creating local solutions to cushion, on how they are, cushioning their community from the effects of this global pandemic. And the smartphone has been at the center of that. But what's important also to mention is that while we appreciate these technologies that are coming up right now to enable us do these stories, what remains constant is the art of storytelling. Now, I'll give you an example. So today you are sent to Marsabit, for instance, to do a story of, like Safaricom tells you, go to Marsabit, we have dug a borehole there, for instance, and tell the story that we have done this story. I don't know how the approach would be for you guys, but what I would see, instead of going there and saying Safaricom this, Safaricom that, Safaricom has done this, they have given these people a borehole, for instance, now they can be able to access water, the other approach, which we need to change from the concept, there's, for journalists, they understand this, that there's this analogy of dog bite man, that is a very usual story, and most journalists would want to see that unique thing in a story, and we would want to change that and tell it from the angle of man biting dog, because that is a little bit unusual. So in this example of Safaricom providing, like, drilling a borehole for people in Marsabit, for instance, what I would do is go to Marsabit, okay, talk to these girls, these women who've been using donkeys to travel a few kilometers, to go and fetch water. So I would go with them, walk with them that journey, go with them to that journey to where they fetch water, 10 kilometers from their homes, walk with them, see the challenges they go through. It's under the scorching sun, they have barrels of water on their heads or on their backs, or they have these donkeys that are carrying water, and come with them all the way back home. And then now go to this short distance, let's say a kilometer or a couple of meters from the house, where they just pump the water, it's clean. And that way, in as much as that way, we will have told a better story. It will be rich, it will be deep, it will have like depth, instead of just saying Safaricom this, Safaricom that. You'll be able to still achieve that with the other story, but you have tried to humanize. So back to what I said in the beginning, that make people the center of your storytelling. Make that way you will be able to tell compelling human stories, compelling human-centered stories. And another approach, again, that we use at Mobile Journalism Africa is trying to do like solution-based storytelling. It's called it's a concept known as constructive journalism or solution-based storytelling. So what we do is we are aware of the challenges that we have in our continent, but that notwithstanding, it doesn't mean that we do not have also, positive stories of people who are trying to change things in their communities, change makers, young change makers in our societies. You understand? So what we do is try and look at those, even in a problem, we try and look at that problem and look at a solution that has been developed locally around that problem, and try and tell those stories. What we aim to achieve eventually is to change how Africa's narrative is told. So we have all these, and I'll even challenge you to just go online and type in there, just type Africa, and you'll see the types of images, the types of stories that will pop up on the browser. And why is that? Because most of the stories that have been told about Africa have been told by people who are not in Africa. Okay, they've been told by people who come in here and tell those stories through some particular lenses with some particular interests. But we can actually change that by being our own storytellers, and that's why we also kind of train people on how to tell stories using their smartphones. Now, a lot of people usually ask this question. So the smartphone and the professional camera, the whole question on whether it's professional. Others question quality. Others don't even take us seriously when we appear in a function, for instance, with a smartphone, and we have a mic there. They tend to think that it's not, I don't know how to put it, but they do not consider it with the same depth that they regard uh, the other, like TV cameramen, for instance. But it would interest you to know, and I'll kind of share a link here to our YouTube channel and all our digital platforms, so that you look at those stories and tell us, and you'll find out that the issue of quality is not so much a big deal, for as long as you have a compelling story. No one will even dare to look at I don't know, the resolution, how clear is your video, for as long as you've considered all the things that you need to make your video good. That's good sound, good lighting, and then now storytelling, like we said. So you build your story in a manner that would make it compelling. People would want to watch and watch and watch, and try as much as possible to always answer the question, so what? Understand? Like, in doing your story, at the end of it, we always told in journalism class that you try and answer those 5 questions, the 5 W's and 1 H question: who, what, where, when, why, and then how. But I would want you to go an extra mile and try and answer in your storytelling the question, so what? Yeah. So try and make sense of the things that you talk about in your story. If it's about numbers, it's about something that has happened, what does it mean to the people, the local most people, like we usually call them, there's the common term in Kenya, the common mwananchi. Yeah. So what does it mean to them? Because you're not doing this story for you. And that brings me again to another aspect here on the so I think I look sorry for that, Cynthia, and thank you for that. Yeah. So I was saying there's this other issue on you're not the story. Yeah. So the story is about the people. That's why I said the people are at the center. Should be at the center of your storytelling. Get close to the people. You'll get to know their feelings, their emotions. So that's why you see that emotion-driven stories perform really well. But I'm not saying that when I talk about emotions, I talk about sad stories. Yeah, because sadness is not the only emotion, I think. So try and see how you can humanize the stories. If it's about even if it's a story on finance, on economy, for instance, try and break that down to what it means to the people. Okay. And like I said, you are not the story, you're just a conveyor of the story. So it's not about you. It has never been about you. If you're a storyteller, it's about the story, the people in that story. So I'll tell you a little bit about our workflow at Mobile Journalism Africa. So what we do is, if we have a story idea, for instance, pitch that story. So we have a team of editors, yeah, in-house editors. We discuss the story, discuss the angles, and see. And angles include the things like I was telling you, yeah. If like the Marsabit story I was telling you. So just trying to look at how to tell that story differently. Because, for instance, this story that I am chasing today in West Pokot is about female genital mutilation. So my biggest assignment is thinking about how do I make this story different from the other stories I've done and the other millions and millions of stories that have been done by people, other media houses, other individuals, understand? So how am I going to tell it different? What's the angle? Am I going to tell it from the angle of the girl? Yeah, the girl who is undergoing this practice. Am I going to tell it from the perspective of government? Government is raining down and saying, we have a law, we will arrest you, you will go. But you'll serve a jail term, you'll pay this amount of fine, for instance. By telling it from the angle of it being a cultural thing that people have been doing this for quite some time. How am I going to tell this? So I have to really think about the angle even before I start filming, yeah, so that when I'm filming, I'm only going to film what I will use in the final process, which is post-production, editing, yeah. So I have to, one, we have to brainstorm about the story, go through like the story idea and see what angle we are going to go to, do a storyboard and know what all right, fine. I'll try and answer that, Cynthia. Thank you. So we go through that, do a storyboard, and then go out to film. Now, I know some of us do not have like a background in communication, but that is actually the real essence why we started mobile journalism Africa in the first place, because it's for people like you and me who, well, I have a background in communications, but mostly it's for people who do not have a background in communication. And here is the reason why. There are millions and millions of untold stories, okay, in our continent. Leave alone even the continent. Let's start talking about Kenya, this country. Yeah, how many stories would like the mainstream media do? If it's, you understand the things that make news, for instance, prominence, like you'll see a lot of stories on politics, for instance, because that sells. And for media houses, they are about, they'll go for what brings them like huge ratings and things like that. But there are a lot of stories that matter, stories that are happening down in the grassroots. And I want you to think about your locality, like your home county, back at home. How many things are happening there that weren't reported? And even apart from that, if you're running a personal initiative, for instance, like what Cynthia is doing, and if you sit and wait and say you're going to wait for an interview from mainstream media, for instance, to talk about what you do, I don't know how long you will wait. And even if they come, I don't know how long that story would be. If it goes like the most it can go, yeah, for instance, is what, 1 minute or a couple of seconds, not unless it's a feature and you're doing a really important thing that they will find interesting, they will find newsworthy, or they'll do for a feature. But for the rest of it all, and like Cynthia is doing here, is she tells these stories about what she's doing and about other young change makers, and she's doing that using her blog. And you do not actually like need to have a paid for blog, like an entire website. There are a lot of what do we call? There are a lot of CMS, content management systems, that are freely available, like WordPress, for instance, and you can actually do that. So the whole point is, if you are going to use even video for storytelling, and I'm going to in the comment section share in the chat, yeah, share links on how you can film using your smartphone, the basics, yeah, of how to film, and basics on how to edit. So there, if you guys are using Android, yeah. So for Android users, there's an app called KineMaster. It helps you edit. There's another one called Quick. There's Power Director. There are different apps that are freely available on Play Store that you can actually use to edit your videos. And for shooting, yeah. So there's the normal camera and there is open camera. So if you can download open camera, it will help you in achieving that. Very nice manual control over your camera, and you'll get good sound, good pictures. Okay. And then for iOS users, the iPhone users in the house, you can get Filmic Pro for filming. That is your open camera on iOS. So to film, you can get your Filmic Pro, and then to edit, you can use your KineMaster or Luma Fusion. Okay, those are the apps that you can use to shoot and edit. How do you layer your story to get people to genuinely care about your cause amidst all the superficialness that exists, say, in social media? Very good question, Cynthia. Now, there's a lot of noise on the digital platforms, a lot of noise. But number one, like I said, make your stories compelling. And how do you make your stories compelling? Put people at the center of that story. Try and see the bit that how you're going to bring out the emotions of those people. That will make your story stand out. That will make your story compelling. But above all that, and very important, is consistency. Yeah, that what are you known for? If you're doing stories and publishing them on social media, for instance, you know, try and find a voice for your storytelling online. And if you're consistent with how you do those stories, people will start identifying with you and knowing that this particular page, if I want to know to do stories on politics, for instance, stories on what social issues, gender-based violence, mental health, which is a very important topic right now, build that platform consistently. Let us know you for doing these stories, because if I know that there is a story on mental health and what people are doing, initiatives that people are doing to ensure that the mental wellness of people around, I'll come to your page straight. I'll not go and search at all stories on mental health. I'll just come to your page, because I know right now, and even studies reveal that people are a little bit more selective about the content they consume, whether be it mainstream or social. So the it's called the Reuters Institute of Journalism, I think. They do studies every year. I'll try and share a link with Cynthia so that she can share with you that they have done studies on news media consumption. Yeah, and they have found out that people are continuously shying off watching news on TV, for instance, because it's depressing. It's a lot of sad stories, a lot of negative stories. But while they shy away from that, they are going to all these other platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. What are they finding? They're following specific organizations, specific brands that are doing specific stories, like niche storytelling. So you can actually do that. You can be that go-to person that we can know that, for instance, if I want to read stories of young change makers across the continent, for instance, I will go to like CynthiaUNTAMED, for instance. I'll go to her blog and read, yeah, or go to like the Mojo website, for instance, because I know I want to selectively read, like consume what I know is good for me, yeah. And with these trends also on digital, you understand, yeah. So there are a lot of factors that come into play when you're doing your stories on these digital platforms. That a lot of factors have to come into play. Like people need to have bundles to access these platforms, yeah. So you have to give me a reason, yeah. You have to give me a reason to continue watching your videos. And that's why we say, even when we are making our videos, yeah, our video stories, we try and think about the consumer, so that in the first 30 seconds we have made our video as compelling as possible, so that you do not start watching and you scroll, continue like looking for other things. You start watching and you watch it to the end. And if you, for those guys who've seen, and those of you who are going to like have a look at the stories we do, we try and make them as short as possible. And I do not mean that long stories do not get watched. And that's why I said, if you make it compelling, whatever the length, yeah, whatever the length, we will watch. And that's why we watch a lot of series continuously. You watch one episode and you're still like, hey, so what next? What happened? Then what? So you watch the next episode and the next and the next. So if you make your stories compelling, if you make your stories interesting, your audience will watch those stories and find, even like try and push your audience to even click share. You understand? Like apart from just liking and commenting, they can actually share your story, and you can do that. You can do that pretty easily. Now, the issue of distribution, they say content is there's a phrase: content is king, consistency is queen. But I would add that distribution is King Kong. Is that clear? So content is king, yes. Consistency is queen, all right. But distribution is King Kong. And this is why I say this. So right now we have multiple channels on which to distribute our stories. Okay. And before I even come to that, I have to talk about, especially for those of you who are going to be using your smartphones to film, we have to talk about the orientation, like how are we filming. So there are those of us who like filming on vertical, like when your phone is upright. Now I can't show you that because I'm using my phone. Or there are those who are going to film on landscape. Now there are advantages of all these platforms, of all these like orientations, like styles of doing this, of filming your videos. Now we have platforms that are specific to a particular orientation. Yeah. So I'm sure IGTV, yeah, I think it's IGTV that takes like stories in portrait, yeah, and then the rest of the platforms tend to like take videos in landscape form. But there's a caveat to that. If you are going to film in landscape, okay, so you have this story and you want to share this story on YouTube, for instance. So if you are thinking YouTube, then think landscape. But an even more advantage of filming on landscape is this: that if you film on landscape, you can actually change that to whatever format that you want. That you can edit that while editing, you can select like to edit in portrait, to edit in like square for Instagram feed, or the different other orientations that are there. So it is easier to manipulate and change a video that is in landscape to the other different orientation than it is for portrait, because you will lose a lot of content in that frame. Okay, so IGTV, yes, that is correct, Cynthia. That IGTV, even TikTok, use the portrait platform. Now coming to the issue of distribution, I said distribution is King Kong. The reason I say that is like we have different platforms now. Kitambo, it used to just be YouTube, and then Facebook came along, Twitter came along. Now we have Instagram. We even have WhatsApp stories. There is TikTok, Instagram stories, IGTV, Facebook stories, and even YouTube has a bit on stories. So while you are producing your video stories, for instance, the visual stories, think about, like after during editing, you need to think about, where am I going to put this? So you can have your long video, like your complete video, cut that for YouTube, it's fine. But after you cut for YouTube, instead of just sharing links on these other platforms, try and cut like teasers for the different platforms. So for IGTV, for instance, you cut in portrait, you edit in portrait and put a piece on that on IGTV, and then you cut another short piece, like 30 seconds. WhatsApp does 30 seconds, the status, yeah. So you do a 30 second thing for WhatsApp, you do another one for the other platforms. LinkedIn even is there. You do another piece for Facebook, another piece for YouTube stories, IG stories, Facebook stories. And I noticed Facebook stories right now like does clip your videos in 15 seconds, so you might want to consider that. But it's important to know that how does your audience respond to all this. So that's why it's good to, while you do this, you measure, you check and confirm whether how your audiences are responding. And it's good because these platforms allow us to interact. They're interactive platforms. They allow us to listen to the people we are talking, because like I said, we're not producing the stories for our own, like for ourselves, but it's about the people. So think about them, and while you're producing and sharing this, do not bog people down with links and links and links. Just do a teaser, then share a link to the complete story, and you'll be there. So I don't know, I'll be taking questions. Cynthia, this journey is beginning, so I'm going to annoy Yegon, but I can be able to take questions, even if it means doing it on the chat. Okay, so links are just like you've uploaded. Yeah, so guys, teasers versus links. So a teaser is a short, interesting video about your whole, the complete story that you've done. For instance, you have a 10 minutes story, yeah, on your YouTube. So the one that you've uploaded on YouTube is 10 minutes, but you want to get this very powerful bite, this powerful bites that someone has said. Someone has said a very important, that powerful statement that someone has said in your 10 minutes video. You might want to cut that to, you know, create interest, build, how would I call it? Create interest, build that. I don't know how to put it really, but those teasers enable people to want to watch more. Like you want to create interest in people. Hey. So then what? What next? You understand? So those ones are the teasers. So the link that I meant here is you've uploaded your video on YouTube, so you take that link off YouTube, and then while you're sharing it, you share it along with the teaser. So you share the short video, and then you share the link below. You tell people if you want to watch more, here is the link. You understand? And you can do that across all the platforms. Facebook, put that to Twitter. So you do the so you put the 30 seconds video, the teaser that you made, and in your tweet you also include the link to the full story, so that that way people have somewhere to watch, to continue watching your full video, where they can comment, they can also share. And also those teasers also help you to, like, you can even like share to friends, and they can share that without like feeling like you're being too much on them. And yeah, so I'll be taking questions, Cynthia, if that's okay, because I'm not so sure about how strong the internet will be where we are going. So please ask away. Oh, I think while the questions are coming, I think I should mention another thing, that because you are thinking about doing video stories, yeah, think about your visuals. It's very important. What are you showing us when you're talking about whatever you are talking about in your story? What are you showing us? Think about that, because that helps you to maintain, like retain your audience while they are viewing the story. So really think visuals. If you're talking about books, if you're talking about a story on menstruation, for instance, and I remember we did a story a few weeks ago about a lady who is distributing like sanitary towels to people in Kibera, for instance. So while we are telling that, so while she's explaining about sanitary towels, we are actually showing you the different, you know, types of sanitary towels that they are making available. We show her giving out those sanitary towels. So those are the visuals I'm talking about. That you show what you are saying, show what the person in your video is saying, so that people are able to relate, and that story is a little bit complete. It's not hanging. We are not just left there, so that you are not giving us a video. Let's say it's 5 minutes, and in these 5 minutes, we are only seeing the face of this person who's speaking from minute 1 to minute 5. Okay, so try and avoid that by bringing in, they're called cutaways. So bring in all those other videos that enable you to tell your story better, because you're showing us things. Those are visuals. So have like compelling, creative shots, compelling videos that you can use as cutaways, because visuals are very important. Now that we are talking about audio-visual storytelling. And then, now that you're going to be filming using your smartphone, here are tips that will help you. Think about the capacity, because we have different smartphones, yeah, and we are grateful because this technology keeps improving. But what's important is think about your storage. So if you don't have enough storage in your phone, like internal storage, kindly like acquire an external, like an additional storage card. So a memory card would really come in handy. And then again, the issue of power, because you're going to be filming, so like doing videos, your phone will consume power faster. So you want to like have a power bank on standby, okay? And before you film, please just wipe your camera lens, because our hands are always like usually just back there, and you want to remove those if it's dirty. You want to have like good quality videos coming in. So yeah, that's about it. Like I said, I will share videos on tutorials on how to shoot and how to edit videos using your smartphone. And the whole thing about storytelling, you can actually have a look at some of the stories we've done, both for our platforms and for platforms outside the country. But really, there's no limit to what you can do using your smartphone. And I hope uh, from these and from the videos that you're going to watch, I'm going to share, that we will not have an excuse for not like putting our best foot forward in questions, please just ask. I'm not seeing anything coming up on the screen after what Cynthia asked on teasers versus links. So kindly just let me know if you're still getting this feed.